Welcome to our video on North Carolina Landlord-Tenant laws. As a landlord, you need to know your responsibilities and rights to manage your rental well. To help you do that, here are some lease and landlord-tenant laws you need to know in the Tar Heel state. The lease agreement is the foundation of the landlord-tenant relationship. It's a legally binding contract between a landlord and a tenant that establishes the terms of the rental relationship. The most common type of lease agreement is a one-year, fixed-term lease that terminates at the end of the lease term. This is often referred to as a standard lease agreement. In addition to the terms of the lease, there are some additional disclosures that must be included in a North Carolina lease. Pursuant to federal law, if a property was built before 1978, tenants must be provided with a lead-based paint disclosure and pamphlet. If a landlord collects a security deposit, the landlord must provide tenants with a security deposit receipt stating the name and address of the financial institution where the security deposit is being held.
Next, let's talk about key landlord-tenant laws in North Carolina. For lease agreements of more than 1 month, the security deposit may not exceed 2 months' rent. For month-to-month leases, the security deposit may not exceed 1.5 months' rent. Within 30 days of the tenant giving up possession of the rental, the landlord must either return the security deposit or send a notice stating that there is damage, and an additional 30 days are necessary to estimate repairs. North Carolina does not provide specific regulations about entering a property for non-emergencies, but we always recommend that landlords provide at least 24 hours written notice. North Carolina has a 5-day grace period, so landlords cannot charge a late fee until rent is at least 5 days late. Any late fees must be stated in the lease agreement and cannot exceed $15 or 5% of the rent payment, whichever is greater. North Carolina landlords may require tenants to get renters insurance and can make failure to do so a breach of the lease agreement. We recommend all landlords do this. Return payment fees in North Carolina may not exceed $25. This fee should be stated in the lease agreement. It's important that landlords are familiar with lease termination and renewal laws. Fixed-term leases usually terminate at the end of the lease term, unless otherwise stated in the lease agreement. North Carolina month-to-month leases may be terminated by either party with 7 days' notice. North Carolina does not impose a limit on how much a landlord can increase rent. However, the lease should specify the procedures and notice requirements for rent increases. North Carolina law requires landlords to maintain the rental property in a habitable condition. This includes ensuring that essential services like plumbing, heating, and electricity are functioning correctly. Tenants must promptly notify landlords of any needed repairs.
Tenants in North Carolina have specific rights, including the right to withhold rent if the landlord fails to make essential repairs within a reasonable time. Retaliation by the landlord against tenants is strictly prohibited. If a tenant fails to pay rent or violates the lease agreement, the landlord may initiate the eviction process. The process must adhere strictly to North Carolina law, and the landlord cannot resort to self-help eviction methods, such as changing locks or shutting off utilities. Congratulations, you're now familiar with key lease laws and you're ready to create your North Carolina lease. While these laws might sound complicated, remember that our North Carolina lease automatically includes all required disclosures and gives you state assist tips throughout the lease building process. Before you turn over possession of your rental, make sure you've screened all tenants, have an executed North Carolina lease agreement, and you've collected the entire security deposit and first month's rent. As you manage your rental, keep in mind that we have over 400 property management forms, including North Carolina-specific forms. Visit easylandlordforms.com to start your tenant screening. Create a North Carolina lease agreement that's guaranteed to comply with all North Carolina lease laws, and access North Carolina property management forms.